Hello, I'm Dr. Andy Hales from the University of Mississippi, and in this video, we will be going over the basics of R, Part 2. Here we're going to look at functions, what they are, where we can find more information about them, and how to troubleshoot when they aren't behaving the way we want. So let's dive right in. And for starters, we will load up the package we're going to be using, the tidyverse here. We'll read in the data. And like last time, I'm going to simplify things here. Instead of all those 38 variables, I'm going to pull out just the ones we want to be working with today: participant number, estimated number of Skittles, and siblings. So I run that, and now we have our three variables. One thing that might be kind of confusing at first here, if you were paying attention last time, is that we learned the dollar operator is how you indicate you want a specific variable. But you'll notice I am pulling specific variables. There's no dollar operator. What's going on here? Well, the reason is because we're using this select function from the tidyverse package that simplifies things. It makes life easier, and we don't have to fuss around with dollar symbols when we're using this convenient function. This allows us to tell it straight at the beginning we're using the data frame called data, and then we can just type these in without it. Life is better. Thank you, tidyverse. Okay, so what are functions? Functions are the backbone of R. Really, it's how everything gets done. Functions are a command followed by two parentheses, and inside of those parentheses goes the information that we give it about how to perform the command. Those pieces of information that we put in the parentheses are called arguments. So here we're using the command hist to produce a basic histogram, and the argument is the name of the variable we want to see the distribution of. In this case, that argument we enter in here as data $estimate so that we can get a histogram of the estimated number of Skittles. Not bad. Kind of bad. It's a sloppy histogram, but hey, if we're just poking around our own data, this is a good start. Maybe not for a publication, but fine. Okay, so functions, they can give us images, but they can also give us numeric information. I mean, the sky's the limit here. So shockingly, means are computed in R using the mean function. So we give it the argument here again is just the name of the variable, and we get the outcome, or the numeric output we'd expect. Median, same thing. Mode, mode, what's up? Right, we were expecting the most frequently occurring number. That's what a mode is. Well, all right, intuition only goes so far. Sometimes functions have names that are different than you'd expect. So a mode, R thinks something else is going on there. So we'll come back to that, but for now, let's just take a look at another function we can use in R. There's one called table. Say we just wanted a table of the frequencies of all the values we're dealing with here. Well, here's a table of that. We have the value 20 with 1 score. We have the value of 22 with 2 scores. The value of 25, look at that, 3 people estimated there were 25 Skittles, and so on. Now, if you really wanted to know the mode, well, this table has that information. In fact, we can see 30 has 4 responses, and look at that, 40 also has 4 responses. So we got a couple modes in there. You see, you can get the information you need if you poke around a little. Here's one last function example we'll look at for now, and that's summary. Summary is helpful because it gives us some basic descriptive information about a variable, again, with just the most simple input in the world. We just tell it the name of the variable. We've got the minimum value, the maximum value, median, mean are right here in the middle. We've even got the first quartile and the second quartile. Great. So suppose we want to learn more about a function, right? In fact, say mode above, we know it's not doing what we want, but we might be persistent and want to get to the bottom of this. Well, anytime you want to know more about a function, you just put a question mark in front of it, you run it, and it pulls up the help menu with all of the explicit information about that function. So here we can see that the mode function, instead of giving us the most frequently occurring value, it actually returns for us the kind or type of object that we give it. So we gave it this object up here, data estimate, and it told us That's a number. Okay, great. That's not what we were going for, but R does what R expects. So that is where you would find information about functions. So out there in the wild, you won't have Andy telling you what each function does. That's okay, because you know you can find the official information about it here. And of course, there's also Google and the whole internet, which is, you can be resourceful, but this is sort of the most authoritative, easily accessible way to find that information. All right, one last thing to point out here is sometimes functions don't do what you want. So let's compute the mean number of siblings, right? We asked everyone how many siblings they have. We got the numeric estimate. Should be straightforward to calculate the mean, but when we do that, we get NA. NA stands for not applicable. That's a missing value. Well, what's going on here is that R gets really literal about numbers when you give it to them. And so it turns out that it's refusing to tell us the mean because we have in this column at least one missing value. And so if you ask R, what's the mean of this? R is saying, I don't know the mean of this. No one knows the mean of this because you haven't given me all the information. All right, well, that's a little bit fussy, a little bit picky, but now that we know that, we can work with it. So if we wanted to know all of the function or all of the arguments or pieces of information that the mean function takes, well, we know where to find that now. We can just pull up the menu for mean, and we can see that there's an argument to indicate what to do with missing values. And you can read more about that down here where it gives that information. And we see it defaults to false, na.rm, meaning do you remove the missing values? And by default, it says no. And we want to override that default because we want to get the mean even though there's a missing value. We want to be aware that there's a missing value, but we got to move on with our lives, figure out what this mean is. So here we can explicitly override that default and say, go ahead and remove those missing values. We're going to set na.rm to true. And when we do that, it happily computes the mean based on the values that are there. Okay, so that's an example of how you troubleshoot these things. Obviously, the world's more complicated than that. You'll have to use your wits and resources to solve the new problems as they come up, but now you at least have a starting point on what that would look like. So we've come a long way. We've learned the 4 basic operators you use in R. We've learned what functions are and where you can find more about them. We are up and running. So in the next video, we will look at how to actually start doing descriptive analyses and getting some insights from the data sets we've got. So I will see you then.